Alright, this video is going to be on PvP, going over squad composition and having a better understanding of why squads are set up the way that they are and why the order matters, and hopefully this makes you a little bit better in your 3v3 and 1v1 arenas. First thing I want to talk about are class types. There are what are considered tanky defenders for the front row, and they're meant to take a hit, and you typically want to position them on the front left, and it's going to be Williams, Carly, and McGregor. And for your front row support defenders, these are going to be ones that reduce damage. They are not designed to take a hit. You want these positioned on the front right. This is going to be ones like Adams and Lucius and Murphy. Still on the front row, just not designed to take a hit. In the back row, you have a combination of support DPS and just all-out DPS, or damage per second. So these are your damaging classes. And for aircraft, you have the Reaper or Morrison and DVA. These are your outright damage classes. They don't buff other people. And then there's Schuyler. She technically is outright DPS, but also kind of provides an advantage or a debuff in this case, so I consider her partially support. Her skills allow her to stun the back row of the enemy that you're attacking. There's a 20% chance of that. Depending on how many stars she has, she can stun 1, 2, or 3 people on the back row, which can be a huge advantage, and just basically turning off the enemy's DPS for 2 seconds. So I consider her support, but I put her on the back right. I put DVA back middle, and I put the Reaper in the back left. When it comes to tanks, similar situation. Stepman is also just all-out damage, doesn't buff anybody. Kimberly is all-out damage, doesn't buff anybody. And Marshall is really good damage, honestly, and has an ability that increases the whole squad's damage. So he is an essential one to have on the tank squad. But I put him back right because he's technically classified as a support tank class. And I'll explain why we're putting the supports on the back right and the squishy front row people on the front left or front right in a moment. For the missiles, we're missing one right now. She isn't out, but it's going to be Fiona. And I'll kind of explain how this one's a bit strange for missiles, but missiles are more of a balanced squad compared to the tank and the aircraft squad in terms of skills. So you've got McGregor and Adams in the front row, and in the back row there is Tesla, and typically Fiona would go on the left of Tesla and Swift would go on the back right. Swift is this one on the back left right now, and Swift has the ability to essentially target the one with the lowest health. So he is kind of crucial in zeroing down a squad by focusing on the weakest link. And I don't have him leveled up. Most people don't focus doing missiles out the gate because they're kind of pricey to do so, and their shards don't become available for free until much later. But you can see his first ability, attack the unit with the lowest HP percentage with a missile, dealing small scale physical damage equal to X amount of the attack. And he also has like a random attack ability, but in spite of his abilities being focused on all-out DPS, I consider him a bit of a support because he focuses the weakest person, which is kind of like a niche thing that he does, similar to how Schuyler for aircraft will focus just the back row, and kind of similar how Marshall will buff the whole squad in damage. He's got like a gimmick. So I would typically, and in this case I might actually, put him on the back right, and then once Fiona comes out very soon, we'll be putting her on the back left. And you can check this monolith, by the way, to see when the next people are coming out. And here on day 99, we're on day 95, you can see Lion Cub, Fiona, and she is a missile vehicle. So soon we will have her, and we'll have 3 complete UR squads. So in terms of squad composition, I'm going to go into the arena and just do a fight to show kind of how I would approach setting up each of these. And it's going to apply for all three of these squads exactly the same. There is going to be a triangle that's going to be on the left of your pad when you're standing behind it. Sorry, not hiding behind it, but when you're on the right side, you have these two right individuals. So they're split into two groups despite being one squad. The back middle, back left, and front left are all grouped together, and the two right are grouped together. And this is important for attack priority. And it's like this for every squad, which is why their position does matter. And why you want to, before you just attack anyone in the arena, you want to focus on who you're attacking and how you're attacking them. So going into the arena, I'm just going to pick a random person, and I'm going to lose to this person because they're really strong. So, let's see if there's any chance of beating any of them. Likely not because they have missiles on them. Let's see. No, there's basically no shot of winning any of these. But I'm going to go ahead and click on this one and kind of walk you through how I would look at this. So, on this person that I'm fighting, on their squad pad, they are going to have their squad actually set up kind of similar to how mine is set up. Now, on my squad pad, my Carly is on the left side, and my Stepman is on the left, and my Reaper is in the back middle. So I can move them around just like I would on my squad pad. Now this person, if I was setting up this squad, is actually mirrored. So if this person was setting up their squad on their squad pad, and you could see them setting it up down here, theirs would actually be set up very similar to mine, kind of. So their Carly is showing the on the left from my perspective, but their squad is mirrored from how mine is mirrored, because my left three are going to focus on what would be their left three. So if their squad was down here, and they were the ones attacking me, Carly would be in the front, Schuyler would be over here in the back, and their Swift would be in the back middle. But the game flips it so that you can think ahead for these types of situations. So, in this particular case, how I would approach this fight is I'm looking at the back row damage, and I see that they have a damage on the right side for these two people on the right side. They have Lucius and Tesla against my Lucius and Stepman. So, what I would want to do is, since they have a DPS on the outside, I'm going to put my Reaper on the outside, because the Reaper does physical damage, and I know that Lucius, he prevents energy damage, so that's going to be his like Achilles tendon, so to speak. His Achilles heel, rather. So, and I'm going to lose this fight, but this is more just to kind of drive the point home. I can actually probably pull Kimberly just to give me a small advantage in this case, but it isn't going to matter because I know they're really strong. Actually, let's just go ahead and do all air and do all tank. So, you have Reaper, who is going to do physical damage against Lucius, who blocks energy damage, because the two right are going to attack their two right from your perspective. And my three left are going to attack their three left from my perspective. So, I'm going to kind of want to position these individuals to kind of plan for that. So I want Lucius to go down as quick as possible. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Reaper on the right for physical damage to hit Lucius, and hopefully he goes down first, but we can kind of play this out to show how it's going to go. But the left three are going to focus on Carly, and the right two are going to focus on Lucius. So as soon as I hit battle, you'll be able to see that when I go back and play the report. But again, I'm going to lose these. This person's super strong compared to me. So if we go back in and we play this fight, you'll see my left three, Carly, Schuyler, and DVA, are attacking only their Carly, and my Reaper and my Lucius, well, Lucius hits random people unfortunately, but my Reaper is attacking their Lucius. So in this particular case, their Carly actually isn't as strong as I had hoped they would be. to kind of prove the point that you want to take down their support class first. And in this case, they were smart to have air or missiles on their back squad, which ultimately did a ton of damage to me because it was an all-aircraft squad, and they take 20% reduced damage. So when you're setting up to fight anybody, you want to make sure that you, for one, don't just spam attack, and anytime you pick a challenger, you kind of want to, at least in 3v3 brawl, you want to try to match your squads around and see if you have an opportunity to beat all three. This one, to me, looks like an easy win, but we're going to kind of go through each one anyway. So this one, I see that Murphy is on the left side. This is a terrible decision for them because my left three are going to focus their support defender, and this support defender is not meant for taking damage. Williams is, so Williams should have been here. But some people like to mix it up. Sometimes it does work if they're really strong, but most of the time it really doesn't. So in this case, Murphy prevents physical damage, but it doesn't matter because I have an aircraft advantage over tanks, so I'm going to put my two best damaging classes trying to focus down Murphy. And then Williams will be prioritized next by all 5 of the people in my squad because he's the last front row member. But still, Lucius is going to kind of hit these two randomly, and Schuyler is going to use her third ability to focus the back row. But mostly, we're going to melt Murphy in this case, which is going to leave Williams alone without physical damage protection, which is going to make Williams die faster. And then these 3 are going to go back to targeting the back row 2 on my left, and Schuyler will continue to target all of them randomly. But that's just how the aircraft mechanics work. So this one is set up good. To the next one. For this one, it's aircraft versus tank, which they have an advantage, but they're under leveled, so hopefully I win it. I should win it, but we'll see. So this one is set up relatively correct, but they've split their damage classes in the back because they have Schuyler and DVA in the back on the same side, which means that these 3 on the left are going to be attacking me. And then on the right, you have the Reaper, who focuses as the priority dictates, so he's going to focus the left person. But the problem with this setup for them is that Reaper is not sharing their DPS with DVA, they're sharing their DPS with nobody except Lucius, and Lucius attacks random people, so he's not going to be effective because he does physical damage, and Murphy blocks physical damage. So Murphy is going to basically kind of inhibit, even though he's an aircraft, he's going to prevent him from doing that damage to him and not be as easy to focus down. So in this particular case, I'm going to leave my Williams on the left to counter their DVA and their Schuyler, because he's built to take a hit. Murphy is built to support and put physical damage resistance on everybody. He's usually the first to die because he can't take a hit, but that physical damage is helpful, or the physical damage resistance is helpful. And then on the back row, I'm just going to put Kimberly in the middle and Stetman on the left. I prefer it that way. Through experience, I find the back middle tends to survive the longest, and she's my better damaging class in this case, so I'm going to put her in the back middle. And Stetman, also really good, just his skills aren't as high level as Kimberly, so I'm putting him on the back left, but that's going to make this left triangle focus their Carly. And then Marshall is my other buff. He's going to buff everybody's damage, and he's hidden behind Murphy and has physical damage resistance in the way of, first, all of them are going to kill Murphy, or sorry, Reaper and Lucius are going to focus Murphy, and eventually he'll die. Then they'll all focus Williams, and then once the front row is gone, Reaper and Lucius on the right side will focus Marshall by themselves. But Lucius will probably be dead by then, so it'll just be Reaper versus Marshall, and admittedly, Reaper will have an advantage over Marshall, but so will Kimberly and Stetman on Schuyler, so it's kind of evenly matched despite having an advantage over me. And then going on to the next one, this is going to be pretty much missiles versus missiles. They're in a very similar situation with me, probably not very geared, obviously not as leveled up, so I'm going to go ahead and walk you through kind of how theirs is set up and explain the same. So they've got all 5 missiles, but I've got a 5-star Mason on here, so it's technically a hybrid, but in this particular case, you're going to want McGregor, who is the defender that can take a hit on the front row, and then Adams, who does buffs on the front right. Sorry, McGregor on the front left, Adam on the front right. And then I've got Tesla and Swift on the back left, but since these are technically missiles and they're equal in damage to each other, I'm going to move Swift out to the right because he's going to attack the person with the lowest health, which means that if Tesla and Mason can get McGregor's health low, or at least lower than Adam, Swift will also pile on to McGregor and kill their really good defender first, and then their support defender will be focused by all three people on the back row. And this is where missiles can kind of be overpowered because Swift will focus the lowest damage person. So if your left triangle is attacking their left triangle, this person's probably going to take more damage on the left. And if they're taking more damage, Swift will also focus them, which is going to just chew through squads very quickly. And it's why a lot of missile squads can actually beat tank squads, because you can stack it to where you either have a situation where Tesla might be damaging their support on the right, and Swift will also attack their right side, so you have two damagers hitting the right side rather than a tank and a damage hitting the right side, and you don't have to set it up like this type of situation to have two damagers hitting the right side, and you still have the advantage of DPS and a defender in front. So that I think I'm pretty satisfied with. We've got McGregor on the front left. He's built to take a hit. He's going to defend against Tesla and this other guy back here. And then you got Adam support on the right, matched with Adam, Swift and Swift matched on the right, and then Tesla and Mason. I'm going to put Mason in the middle because he's tank, so he's advantaged over them, and he's higher level, higher stars, higher skills. So that's just my preference. And then we're going to go out, and we'll fight. And then I did lose the tank one, which, again, they had an air advantage, so I wasn't super hopeful over that one. But you can kind of see how in this replay, when we go through here, and they might also have good gear on these. Let's check. They had worse gear. I have unleveled up legendaries, but again, they have a 20% damage advantage, so they countered me quite beautifully. And this is what you can expect to happen anytime someone has a type advantage over you. They're going to massively overpower you, even with a few less levels. Not too many, though. But in this playthrough, you can actually see. Let's see. So these three start off attacking my Williams on the left, and Kimberly and Stepman are also attacking Carly on the left. It's kind of hard to see with all the damage numbers, but this whole time the Reaper on the back right for them is attacking my Murphy, who lived longer than my Williams, surprisingly, because that yellow bubble that's around them is actually a physical damage shield. So that kind of is why Reaper was a bad matchup, but honestly, I really didn't expect much from that one, being type advantaged against me. So in that particular case, that's how you want to look up and kind of, or sorry, not look up, look into how each one sets up their squad so that you have a better chance to win, basically. Because you can just click challenge, pick someone. This person's also really strong. And for example, this is it's an air squad, but they've got Marshall in there. So even though it's not a pure air squad and they have 5% less damage, I know that Marshall can buff over 10% damage. So it's not even really a disadvantage that they have Marshall in this squad. But I'm pretty confident my gear might be better, but they also have levels on me in most cases. So I personally would try to go where I could win, but another thing I know is that they definitely have gear on this Kimberly because I've lost to him already. So rather than trying to win all three, I'm going to do something a little bit more strategic and take the loss on a throwaway squad. And then again, I know I'm going to win these two outright with no issues. And sometimes taking the safe bet is better than gambling and losing, because 3v3 is point-based arena. So I'm just going to go in here and make sure that everything looks good. Another situation where their defenders are swapped, which is not a good idea, because Murphy is going to take all the damage from DVA and the Reaper in this case, which for me are both 5 stars and 140. So he's kind of going to get melted, even though he's got physical damage resistance. So for this one, it's tanks first. Missiles, their setup is generally reflective of mine. It's a good setup. And aircraft versus my missiles. Again, this is going to be my throwaway squad. No chance whatsoever of me winning this, even though it's missiles versus aircraft. They've got tons of levels and probably gear on me. So I'm just going to go ahead and hit this one. And yeah, as expected, that one won. And then I'll do a couple more on rapid fire, just so you can kind of see. And probably going to lose a few because I'm up there, sort of out of my comfort bracket, I would say. But I'll give you some kind of quick talk throughs for these. So for this one, aircraft, missile, aircraft, but 2 purple, so not super worried about them, and Carly. So aircraft against aircraft is pretty safe. The squad looks way too strong for me, even though it's tanks versus aircraft, so I'm not going to bother with it. And for this one, they've got missiles mostly, so tank would be a good matchup, even though they have more power. I've got a type advantage against their whole squad of 20% additional damage because I'm in tanks. The only downside is that this is a 150 Tesla and a 150 Swift. Both 5 stars. They probably have pretty good gear on them, so I could very well lose, like I was saying, because missile squads tend to be... They kind of have an advantage on everybody because of how they're structured in terms of abilities. Or skills, rather, and abilities. So, going into this one, I'm going to probably just leave my air squad the same. I'm not going to put any mixed air squads, air heroes on this one because they're all missiles, so it just would be a detriment to them. And honestly, I'm probably going to do just one thing in this case, which is I would go to my heroes. This is another thing you can do. And I'm just going to replace this with my mythic gun that I have on DVA. And I'm going to go to DVA, and I'm just going to put the level 0 gun, because she is 5-star aircraft. She's not going to really be struggling in that fight. And then, of course, this doesn't reset your challenger in 3v3, so you still have to fight the same person. So I'm just going to go back in there. And you can see there's a massive power drop when I moved Kimberly over here. Even with a mythic gun. Or sorry, no, it reset my squads. There we go. I was going to try to explain that, but I wasn't sure why I did it. Okay, so here we have to change the squads, even though we did it before. We have to do it one more time. So we're going to put Kimberly over here. We know she has the mythic gun now. And we'll put DV over here. That's better. Okay, so it brought the power up a little bit over here. But you can see how... I didn't mean to do that. Let me go back, sorry. I just meant to switch out the guns, not the actual characters. There we go. So it gave a little bit extra power, but it's going to give Kimberly a lot more strength because she's going to hit all of them with her strongest ability. So she'll be my key damage factor in destroying them. But this person is pretty much across the board stronger than me for all squads, and I'm trying to just even it out to where I can win. So let's see how it goes. And for that one, I won. So even though... Well, I guess not really an even though in this case. I had a type advantage, and I had a level and star advantage for similar class on that one. So let's go through a couple more. And I know I still have that gun on Kimberly, but let's see who we get first before we change it. And this is missile, missile, missile. Pretty comfortable leaving the mythic on Kimberly for now. This is all aircraft versus all aircraft, but I've got pretty big margin of power against them and stars, so I am just going to wing this one and take the 2, which that's how it went. So if there's a big enough power gap, you don't necessarily need to change the squad each time in this case. This person's pretty strong too, but I don't think I've really had a problem beating them in the past. So their air versus my air. Kind of a similar situation, but they've got more stars in this case. So something I would do in this case, knowing that they have full 5 stars and I don't, and we're similar in level, is I would go back to my heroes, go back to my DVA, and I would re-equip her because she's going against someone who is just as strong as her. So we're going to do that. We're going to go to Kimberly, and then we're going to go to hers, and I didn't mean to do that. I took gear off somebody else. I have to figure out who I took gear off of. Williams. Okay. So, we'll go back into this one. And go back to this person. And maybe we'll get lucky and we will be able to beat all of them. But I've got all air versus all air, and all tanks versus all tanks, and all missiles versus all missiles. So we're kind of going in a similar game path. I'm going to make sure for my air squad that my chipset over here is selected. This is always good to check. I find that sometimes it just randomly decides to reset on itself and not save my settings, so it's good to make sure that's always on. So we can see how that's going to go. And that was a triple defeat for them. Okay. And let's try one more. Just to show. So this person I'm probably going to lose against. Oh yeah, they're really strong. So in this case, there's pretty much no hope whatsoever. This is a level 30. I'm only level 28. They're maining an air squad, which is the reason for all their power. So even if I try to go up against their tank squad, there's little to no hope at all of winning against them, even with all my gear on. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just throw my generic tank squad against their missile squad, and I'm going to try to just organize this with good priority. So turns out it's already set up with good priority. I've got Schuyler on the right and Lucius on the right, and Lucius prevents energy damage. Stetmann is primarily energy damage. So for the most part, Lucius is going to die pretty quick though. Not really counting on making it through this one. And they have a 135 drone, so I've only got a 110 drone. It's probably going to go horribly. But yeah, we can go back and look at that battle report, and that'll be the last one. So for this one, you can see 10 more levels on me on everything, and all 5 stars, and way higher level drone, which after 110 it doesn't matter as much, but it's enough. And they have way more tech than me because I've admittedly been focusing on different research for now. But you can see it wasn't super far off for them being 30 though. And in this particular case, you can look at the gear. I definitely had the gear advantage over them, which was kind of surprising that my gear was so much better than theirs. But between the drone and the tech power, it can usually be enough. But they've also got all of Kimberly's skills maxed out, which is just crazy skill medals, and a really good balance across the board for other skill medals. But playing into the fight, just to show you an example of priorities. See the drone chips buff off. You've got their Murphy, Marshall, and Kimberly focusing down my Carly. Their Williams and their Stetmann attacking my Lucius. It's just do so much damage. Their Murphy went first, which is their support, because they were focused by 2 DPS and Carly. Their drone came in and pretty much wiped me out. So it's not that their tanks did a lot of damage to my aircraft, it's that their drones did a ton of damage to my aircraft. So you could just see the damage kind of fall away at that point. But generally that's kind of how you want to focus on doing PvP, and this applies in real world situations too. If you have somebody periodically attacking your base and you notice that their squad is set up a certain way and you want to try to counter it, this will generally win you the most fights, but occasionally you can switch it up and it will make a difference. If you don't have full UR squads, this is the last kind of pro tip. Another good squad, most people have Murphy, but another good squad to do is some form of hybrid with 2 support defenders on the right. So in this case, we could do Murphy and Lucius. And what this is going to do is Lucius is going to provide an energy damage shield, and Murphy's going to provide a physical damage shield, which is going to make everybody just live a lot longer. I ran this squad quite a while until I got my my Reaper up to level and stuff when I first got him. But now that I have full squads, this is definitely way better, but you can do double supports on the back row. It's unconventional. It's only really good for PvP. You never want to do that for monsters. But when you're firsting other players, that extra support can actually do a lot of benefits for your squad if you're mostly just trying to keep your damage alive. That's the goal here, is by putting Williams, Carly, and McGregor on the front left, you're ensuring that this front row is staying alive as long as possible to let your damage get their damage out. And that's essentially what the goal is in the game. if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.